Hello, all. Welcome to the Leaders Voice series. Leaders Voice is an initiative. It's a series where we invite guests from different fields of leadership who practice inner mastery while being successful in their field. The whole idea is coming from the hypothesis that external success is not enough. And inner mastery, mastering your energy is very much needed for being successful in the outer world. Now you may say, why is it necessary? And which is why we invite and amplify the voices of guests who practice this, and they share how inner mastery has led them to be successful in their external life, and that's how they have brought peace and balance while being successful. Hi, I am Deepa Mahesh, a life and a leadership coach. While I say this, I practice inner leadership to master my outer leadership, and which is why it becomes very important for me to host such guests. And today's guest is Jaicy Joseph. Welcome, Jaicy.
Thank you, Deepa.
So, to introduce Jaicy, Jaicy Joseph firmly believes that people are the driving force behind a thriving world. Her career has been dedicated to discovering innovative and meaningful ways to empower individuals and enable seamless collaboration. Combining her deep expertise in people, systems, and technology, JC supports organizations in achieving their strategic goals. As the head of delivery for the Americas at Kepner Trego, she passionately leads initiatives that enable people to think critically both at work and in their life. With over 20 years of experience across industry leading organizations such as IBM, Microsoft, and Citrix, JC has successfully contributed across multiple functions. Her leadership is grounded in her core values of transparency and people enablement, making problem solving and decision making simpler and more effective every single day. JC's unique expertise lies in intercultural competence, program management, and onboarding and integration. Beyond her corporate endeavors, JC has recently ventured into the world of fine arts to visually articulate ideas and emotions that words often cannot capture. Well, this feels like a lie, JC, because if you cannot capture things in words, who else can? JC is a master with words, and I can almost listen to her for hours, and you will listen to it too today. Her passion for empowering people and her commitment to creating value have made her a trusted leader in fostering organizational success and individual growth. Wow. I met JC, I think about 1.5 years ago, in the context of coaching education. And ever since then, I have been in awe of how masterful she is in everything she speaks or does. Of course, her humility would say, "Oh, you're being too kind." And that's what she always tells me. But why she is here is I can see the inner in her outer. And today we'll have her articulate all that for us. And maybe she'll reveal some truths to her own self. So, welcome, JC.
Thank you so much for having me, Deepa. Delighted to be here and talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, you know the context of this series. Success is very important to you, to me, to everybody out there in the corporate world. Uh, And in my experience, sustained success without focusing on the inner is possible, but it drains. There is a lot of stress that builds in. What are your views and what has your journey been in this direction? Please share.
So, I think it was about 7 years ago, I'd say. I'd accomplished most of the things that I'd hoped I would accomplish. And while I felt absolutely on top of the world, a part of me was like yearning for something more. I couldn't name it. And I thought to myself, gee, I mean, there's got to be more than these peaks and valleys of experiences that I had. Things where I had a desire, worked towards it, accomplished it, and then moved on to the next, and then another desire, accomplished it, and moved on to the next. So there was this sense of there's got to be more to this than what meets the eye that made me venture into different inquiries, and each inquiry at the end of it helped me learn something new about myself, which has later paved the way for other experiences. So that's sort of like the starting point, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. Where did these inquiries lead you to who you are and where you are today?
I feel like when it comes to inquiries, uh, what is driving the inquiry makes a plays a big role. And for me, the pivotal question was, how is it that I can show up in my core relationship with more presence? It's not that I was dissatisfied with who I was in my relationships. Um, I always wanted to be honest and authentic in every sense of the word. But it felt like there was more presence I could bring. The level of connection could grow. And so that was what drove the initial inquiry. And when you discover a new level of depth, it is very exciting because you discover someone you've known your whole life in a new way, in ways you hadn't known. And that makes you ask the question, is there more to this? And you keep peeling away at the onion layers little by little, and you discover something more. So it's even though you've been in a relationship for sometimes decades, um, there may be something that you uncover and you're like, oh, I didn't know that about you. So it's every inquiry I feel is something that takes me to a new level of depth,
Depth.
and
Yeah,
that's what keeps me going.
yeah, absolutely. And when I listen to you, what the words that come to me is deep listening. So that inquiry enables you to deeply listen to yourself, and that reveals something to you. Yes.
I actually like what you just said, because in discovering another person, you aren't just discovering them, you're also peeling off a layer that you had going on. And it's a process of mutual discovery. So you nailed it.
Exactly. Yeah, you just said it. Yeah, and this is exactly the conversation that I was having with a senior leader about 2 weeks ago, where he was talking about a difficulty outside, in a relationship, in an official relationship. And I asked him a question which made him to really reflect on who is he being, which is creating this thing externally. And you know what he told me? He told me that why is it important to explore this? Let's just focus on the problem at hand. So you're smiling. I think you got some wave. So what's your view on this? And I know I have a thought there, but I knew there was no point talking about it because he was not ready for that conversation. So what's your thought on this?
I, I love how you ask questions. Your questions are guided by things that are beyond the superficial. And it's important to explore things beyond what is presented verbally. Um, but it also requires a lot of courage, because I think sometimes when we try to peel away at the layers, um, everything that's been holding the fabric that you know of, sometimes dismantles
Yeah.
and you don't know what lies in store,
Yeah.
it takes a special amount of confidence to know that, hey, while this fabric disintegrates, there's a strong set of threads that will reveal itself. And it's that confidence that allows people to go at it. And the timing is important
Yes.
because, and as you rightly said, it was just not the right time. And at some point, he will discover something
Yes.
which offers him the courage to,
Yes.
you know, venture in that direction. So, I mean, that's my thinking. It requires a lot of courage and um, courage requires practice. Doesn't just pop out of nowhere.
Yes. Yes. It requires courage because what you said made so much sense. One can feel naked. That's a very uncomfortable feeling. Yeah. And that's why I think inner mastery is not something that people voluntarily go into. Okay, I'm ready now. I have turned 46 on my 46th birthday. I'm going to start inner mastery. It doesn't happen like that. Most often, I have seen that it comes from a breakdown, and after trying everything possible, which is superficial enough, and one can touch and feel, then this probably is the last ray of hope, or say that there's nothing to lose. So let's try. So, have you also experienced this in your life, JC?
Oh, so many times I've lost count. In fact, I've through the early phases of it, I disliked it more than anything
Correct.
because I was like, oh, this is so uncomfortable. But after you notice that at the end of the discomfort lies a new strength, you know the next time a challenge comes along, the discomfort that's so familiar comes along too. And you're like, oh, I know this. If I keep chipping away at it, on the other end is something that I don't already possess, or maybe I possess, but it's dormant, and I can polish it and bring it to the fore. So this is sort of like an opportunity that allows me to uncover this dormant part about me. At Kepner-Trego, we call it questioning to the void, because the void is where the new begins.
Yes, creation happens. Yes, the void is where creation, like the womb, where the
Hmm.
fetus comes and
Hmm.
grows.
Yes,
Wow, amazing. Looks like you're in an organization which is so aligned to how you think and feel.
absolutely love. It's a labor of love. It gets me out of bed every morning. It makes me a better person. It allows me to explore things that I haven't explored before.
Yeah, so beautiful. Yeah. And you said beyond the discomfort lies a new strength. And that's so profound, which means that you're actually having the trust that I'm going through this process of discomfort, like this spiral, to discover that new strength because I believe in it. So you have that awareness somewhere, it's a belief that you're journeying with. So beliefs play such an important role, Chasey, and both the limiting beliefs or the expansive beliefs. Can you, from your life, share an example where you had a limiting belief, you shifted it to an expansive belief, and that impacted your decision making or the way you operate as a leader back, in your organization?
It's kind of silly to say this, but the limiting belief will continue to resurface until
Yeah,
you replace it with an expansive
yeah,
one.
yeah,
It's just the way it works,
absolutely.
um, which is kind of good because then you get more opportunities to shift it. But I remember being in this belief system where I actively pursued the goals that I want to achieve. There's a certain kind of yang energy to it, like, you know, set it, define it, move towards it.
Correct.
And and as luck would have it, on numerous occasions, I had to question my path to the outcome. And repeatedly going at it and experiencing the discomfort, I noticed that, there's, I mean, if I look at this cup of tea I have in my hand, much before the tea or the water that made it got to my table, there's so many hands that exchanged the ingredients that bring it together. So if something as simple as a cup of tea involves so many people, how is it that goals can be singularly achieved? So it makes you want to rely on a group of people who will allow getting there. So there was I mean, I didn't completely remove the drive and the focus. I had that for things that are within my control. And for other things, there's an aspect of surrender that I allowed to come in. And it's not this kind of resignation of any kind, but it is the state of allowing. And I think that that shifted, from something like, oh, I can't figure this out, to, oh, why is this always happening this way? To, okay, what areas is within my control versus what areas require me to shift into this allowing.
So, sounds like this would have enabled you to bring ease and flow while you still pursue those outcomes.
It allows me to sleep at night.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, for the most part.
correct. This is my wish, for every leader. Because when I was in the organization, I exactly operated the way you said you were initially. And it tired me, it burnt me out. And even today, I see so many people burn out. And one of the elements, and today, because I coach corporate professionals, they of course have this space to process, which earlier I didn't have. And one of the reasons after I quit my corporate and went into therapy, and learning therapy is so that I can help those professionals. And of course, that became my career path, after which it was coaching. So, uh, what I observe, because of this burnout and because of this fatigue, there's this exhaustion, cognitive exhaustion, that their emotions are actually flare up. There is no control. There is the balance, not even control, actually. The word is balance. So, do you observe that happening in workspaces? And what could be the reason that you think it could be happening because of?
Well, there could be many reasons for it, but I've noticed that, I mean, to me, emotion is information.
Correct.
But oftentimes it's been labeled the black sheep. So people try to put a lid over it, try to ignore it, hope that it will go away. But if it is a piece of information that is needed in that context, it needs to be brought into the light
Yes.
and looked at. And when you look at it, you would discover either that you've misjudged the situation entirely, or there's more to the situation than what you know, and you may have unconsciously picked up on pieces of information from different contexts, all of which is informing that emotion you're experiencing, and leaving it unexplored entirely is like going into battle, like blindsided.
Blinded.
It, it's and you there are fewer ways to win if you
Yeah.
don't fully uncover that piece of information that is presented to you. I feel that depletes energy a lot. Yes, we need to be rational. um, and yes, we need to look at what information the emotion is providing us with and how valid it is for that current situation to be able to move forward in a balanced way, like you were saying.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Because you're very right. Emotions are messengers, they are communicating something. And if we don't listen, we are missing out on valuable information, like you rightly said. And they could be our tools. So when you have the tools, why go without them? Very true. So beautifully articulated. So what are your practices, that you engage in daily, weekly, monthly, as per your rhythm, to to practice this allowing, this surrender that you articulated, because that definitely, as you said, needs practice.
Well, when I call it practices, it's not like this checkbox I tick every day.
Yeah.
I tried that for a while. It doesn't work because then you make that into another activity
Activity.
rather
Yeah.
than a way to
Yeah.
decompress. So I had to like, that was one of those limiting beliefs too. If I don't check this, I'm not a good
Ha. Yeah.
professional. I'm not a competent person or a complete person. So I had to shift that mentality to, okay, it's a daily practice. It is there for me to allow myself to have more energy and more presence in the situations I'm working on. So things that give me that space is usually a practice of yoga because early on, and my earliest memory of yoga is practicing with my mother when she was expecting my sister. And it was this core memory that allowed me to connect my body, mind, my breath, and felt good. And of course, while it stopped for a brief while after that, I rediscovered it around like 7 or 8 years ago when I decided to, actually, about 9 years ago, when I decided to pursue it in a more holistic way. And when I did that, it allowed me to like de-stress it and sort of like it helps me overcome inertia. I love gardening. Another thing that I picked up from my mom. It allows me to see the active role play versus surrender.
Yeah. Nature does
And
that to us. You can't force a flower to bloom. You can't have goals for it. So
and
true.
it's just like, I mean, yeah, there's so many things I can do as a gardener, and there's so many things that are outside of my control. So that's a very comforting practice. Um, I've also come to enjoy cooking a lot. I remember as a child when there'd be like grains of rice on my plate. And my father's father was a farmer. Actually, both my parents, their parents were farmers. So they worked very hard. My grandfather actually had a six pack until the age of maybe like 70, 70 plus. So my dad would sit us down and give us this long lecture about, do you know what journey that grain of rice tread to be on your plate? And we'd like roll eyes and, you know, sit there wondering, okay, so this lecture is going to last another 10 minutes. But here's the thing for me, after, and it was a lesson on mindfulness for
Okay.
me. So when I cook, it's like, oh my gosh, these ingredients, they were sourced and someone, neatly put it so that it's not bruised. And I have it in my hand, and then it goes through this series of processes, heat and chemicals and spices, and then it becomes this thing. It's a very therapeutic practice for me. And all of these are things that actually help me and things I'm fond of. My husband actually pushes me to explore activities with friends, especially activities that I'm not always comfortable in. And so that is a practice that allows me to go beyond things that give me comfort, where I discover something new. So, like different ranges of practices or
Nice.
different things. Um, and when you notice the kind of energy you need, you know which one to reach out
Yes,
for
yes,
so that
yes,
you can feel like invigorated by it and then
yes,
move on.
yes. Yeah, yeah. It's so interesting. And what you talked about, the example that your dad shared, is exactly the same that you relate to when you say this cup of tea, where is it coming from? I think it's the same lecture you're giving yourself now.
Pretty much.
Reminding yourself of theme.
Yeah, there are some things that we learn from people that stays with us for good.
Yes,
So
yes. And
those are
especially
some of
from our primary caregivers, definitely it stays on. The good, bad,
them.
and the ugly.
It does, it does.
Yeah, but you know, Jesse, you said so many things that you kind of pick up because you love them. I've heard so many people and leaders working in organizations telling me that I don't have time. I know
Mm.
it's a myth, but I have said it too. So, what are your views on I don't have time to do all of this? I have to chase my goals, and that's what I'm here for. I paid for.
The reason I'm laughing is because I've been there.
Correct.
Uh,
Of course.
I have I have empathy for anyone who says I don't have time for this. Do you know the number of things I have to do? And so I get it. Um, in fact, for me, it's also been a journey because in the beginning I was like, I don't have time for this. And then I'm like, okay, you know, what if I explore? And midway through that exploration, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in more trouble than when I started. What have I gotten myself into? And
So true.
then comes the first wins. And when the first wins come is when I'm like, oh, okay, it was worth while, and you're like, okay, so what else could I do? And then you discover that in dedicating the amount of time that you do, you reap like benefits that are exponential, and that is what allows me to take the time now. There may still be occasions where I regress because I think, oh my God, I won't be able to finish all of this. But remembering that, I felt refreshed, I was able to do better, be more creative, provide better platforms for collaboration, allows me to keep at it.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I think it's discovering, it's maybe making that journey visible to people, so that they know that, what they're experiencing has been experienced, and there is a little bit of a rocky road in front, but at the end of that rocky road, you will have something that is beneficial, um,
Yeah.
is what
Yeah.
I would say.
Absolutely. Learning from nature, that rose will bloom. Maybe not at
Hmm.
your time, but it is
Hmm.
going to bloom.
Hmm.
It's meant to bloom. Yeah. But this the issue here is that inner work to manifest in outer results takes a while, takes practice, takes a lot of patience. And it takes it teaches you, the process teaches you so many things. So have you experienced that too?
I would say yes. I mean, we have this saying that trust the process and the results will follow. Um, i- it's basically in the beginning you need that motivation. So I I think it's helpful to anticipate what results and in what areas and the extent that you could potentially see.
Yeah.
So outlining that provides that initial boost or that motivation because you need it to combat the thought process that I don't have time for this. But it once you start seeing that the first go around was hard, but the second go around gets a tad easier, the third go around gets even more easy, then, it's just a matter of time. My yoga practice actually taught me that because the first time I went to the studio, I looked at this lady and she was able to get into all these contortions without effort. It's like she didn't have a bone, it was just like elastic. And I'd look at it and I'd think to myself, how? And I was able to get there later in the journey. So I was like, okay, if it can happen in one area, what other areas could it happen in? And when you explore another area, you push the limits because, I mean, we're people, we like to test the limits of things. So we keep pushing to discover more and more areas. So the more areas I've ventured into, the newer things I've discovered about myself, which I didn't think possible.
Yes.
So yeah, those are a few examples. I
Yes.
mean, there's numerous within work because I feel so much passion towards the work I do. But I used a metaphor that just about anybody can relate to start us off with.
Yes. Absolutely. This can work in one area, it can work in other areas too. Can I explore? I think that's a brilliant way of seeing results before you actually see them. Yes, that's because it's an attitude that you're entering the process with. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Wonderful. We have been having, I mean, I can continue on and on. It's such a pleasure to talk to you. I think,
Likewise.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure we both can go on, but in the interest of the mental bandwidth that people have to watch a conversation, I'm just being kind to everyone else. And just getting into the last question to you, which is uh, you and I believe that inner mastery is important for outer success because you can enjoy that success with ease and flow, with whatever ease, a comparative ease, let's call it.
Mhm.
So, what is that one or two thoughts or suggestions or advice? I mean, people don't like advice, so yeah, let's say what do you want to leave them? What thoughts would you want to leave them with?
I think I will say what I wish I'd heard when I was younger.
Yes.
Um, because when you're younger, there's like this ego that you have, and you think, I'm my challenges are unique and they're different, and you feel stuck sometimes. But if you look around you, there's many other people who've tread the journey before you. Maybe they've even shared the stories of their journeys. And when you listen carefully, knowing that there is information out there and people out there and stories out there that can guide you, you suddenly recognize that you're not alone. it, Everything that needs to be done has been done before. So it gives you that reassurance that you're not alone. And I think that's really important because sometimes especially in our digital world where everything's so disconnected, everything is being monitored and is a number and is so abstract. So I think that's what I consider important. And it's not to say that you're not your unique individual. We all are unique. We've been put on this earth to achieve a unique purpose. That shouldn't scare us. It should give us both hope and the sense of responsibility, while knowing that there are other companions and a community you can fall back on and lean on in times of need. I think that's what I wish someone had said when I was really, really young and just starting out on my professional journey.
Yeah.
I did hear it eventually from folks, and I'm very grateful that I did, because if I hadn't, I would not have been able to grow the way I have been able to. So
Yeah.
I'm very
Absolutely.
grateful to the mentors who made that possible.
Yes, yes. This advice really corrects your mental distortions. Yeah, otherwise we think maybe distorted. Like I had this notion too. And I remember my therapist telling me this years ago. I mean 10 years ago. And then I normalized it. Otherwise I was like this odd one out and everyone else is normal and I am abnormal. Yeah. Beautiful. I think it's such a valuable piece of advice that you're leaving us with. So grateful, JC. Celebrating who you are and for the you who is behind the achiever that you are. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who's listening this special conversation. I feel it's special because I think I didn't just hear information. I heard it with ease and with sukoon in Hindi we call it. So thank you.
I mean, talking to you felt the same way for me. Thank you so much for having me. And each conversation I feel allows new ideas to emerge. And that's what this conversation felt like for me. So I am very grateful being here with you talking about our journeys, Deepa.
Thank you very much.